Started out in private practice as Chicago Lakeshore Medical Associates, which was an independent physician's office of about anywhere from 20 to 40 physicians at any given time, at the 676 building, the St. Clair, 676 North St. Clair Arcus Pavilion. And I was there for approximately 5 years before they got purchased by NMFF, Northwestern Medical Faculty Foundation. And then ultimately, I believe they got purchased by Northwestern Medical Physicians Group or Northwestern Physicians Group. And Northwestern basically took over. They acquired or purchased the independent physicians' offices in the area, and really kind of just took over that space. After leaving the medical field, I went into sales and marketing. In the optical field, I was there for a short time, 6 months to a year, while also working out obsessively, prepping to compete on PC with a personal trainer and a prep coach. My trainer was Manny of Export, and my prep coach was Christian McCoy, who would travel around training people in various states and places. I saw myself go from 70 pounds of soft fat to under 20% body fat in about 6 months, I'd say, which is dramatic, but you have to be super committed and dedicated to that. So my schedule looked something like I would wake up my 3 children, or my oldest, tell her that I was going to the gym, that she had 1 more hour to sleep or an hour and a half to sleep. We lived in the basement of my ex-husband, Orlando, not really marriage husband, but the father of my child. We lived in the basement of his grandmother's house. So early in the morning while everyone was still sleeping, she would be there. There wasn't even a lock on the door going up and down, but it was like an apartment in that I had my own kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms. There was a laundry room, but I couldn't really use it. I would sneak sometimes and use it if there was an emergency. But for the most part, I used the laundromat. And so my life was not easy. Being 3 children, working full time, waking my oldest, who was 12 at the time, and telling her if there's a problem, get Mama Nellie, I'll be back in an hour. And then going to the gym for my first round of training, coming back home, eating breakfast, waking up the kids, getting them dressed, sending them off to school with a cereal bar or, a donut and some chocolate milk, or whatever they wanted, fruit, whatever, or, just barely making it home from the gym with enough time to say, oh my God, everyone hurry up and get up. They went off to school. I went back to the gym for my cardio session, and did religiously, like it was my job, 45 minutes on the stairs in a zone 2, which for me was a level 5 or 6, because I was coached into believing that keeping your heart rate into a zone 2 is optimal for burning fat while also building muscle. I would drink BCAAs and protein. I would eat 5 very, very specific meals each day. And 6 months of that is what brought me to the point where I was, and I don't even feel I was nearly close enough to competing as most people would imagine. So it's definitely a very rough lifestyle. I would take my meals in a 6-pack bag to my job, and then I would go back home, and my children would get dropped off around 5. If it was one of my late nights at work, they would get dropped off at the actual eye doctor that I worked at. And then I would spend 3 days a week off, because we were off Mondays, with my children, just hanging out or going to the park or museums or the zoo or, whatever, cleaning my house, reorganizing or rearranging the furniture in my home, etc. and so forth. I always did my best to be the mom that listened to her kids and gave her kids an opinion. What do you want to eat? What do you want to do? What do you want to, watch? While also trying to be as healthy as possible on a very, very tight budget. I would get, a little bit of wiggle room around income tax time. But other than that, I was paycheck to paycheck. And I was working, as I said, with bachelor's degree credits, more credits than a bachelor's degree requires, and numerous outside certifications of medical, phlebotomy, personal training, just various relevant courses to my field. I went back to school after attending 2 community colleges and transferred to AIU, American Intercontinental University, with 3 small children. Transferred my major from nursing due to not being able to go to in-school clinicals or on-campus clinicals, which means that you work for free and work a full-time job while supporting 3 small children. So I worked as much as I possibly could while also doing homework and being a present, available mother for my children. With my 3rd pregnancy, Alexis, so I have Viviana as my oldest, Lewis is the middle, and Alexis is the baby. She's 10, the oldest is 17, and my son is 15. I almost died. I had Alexis, and I noticed immediately after I gave birth to her, she was in induction because she was 2 weeks late, and I was on a Pitocin drip. And I had read a lot about some of the potential downfalls of using Pitocin to induce pregnancy. One of them was an increased possibility for placental abruption. And as soon as I gave birth to her, I knew I had a placental abruption. I looked at my doctor out of Elmhurst Hospital, Dr. Martinez, and I said to him, that's an abrupted placenta. And he was like, no, everything's fine. And I'm like, I look at Orlando and I look at him and I look at the placenta. I'm like, are you sure? Because I have 2 other children and the placenta doesn't look like that. You know, the placenta comes out intact. It almost looks like how they teach you a kidney looks, you know? And it's like enclosed in this kind of like tissue. So I knew mine was in pieces all over and ruptured. And I knew that there was an increased amount of danger because when you retain placental fluid, you need to have a surgery to remove it. If you don't, your body begins to, as it deteriorates and dies inside of you, your body begins to attack it as a foreign substance in your body. And how does our body empty itself of foreign substances? An increase in mucus, an increase in saliva, an increase in blood, bleeding, etc. and so forth. Our body fluids increase so that we can void whatever it is that our body is rejecting. So 2 weeks almost, or maybe 3, I returned to Northwestern 3 days after I got home from the late postpartum hemorrhage. But Alexis is born. The next day, I find out Viviana and Lewis have chickenpox, and they came to see her on the day she was born. They got to hold her, and then my ex Lewis's mom goes, oh my God, los 2 niños ya tienen chickenpox. Están en el cuarto, no te preocupes, Heather, todo está bien. Tú tienes que, to rest. You just had a baby. So I know you're worried, but just don't worry. Everything's going to be okay. We're going to take care of them. That was my mother-in-law, Consuelo. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law were always very hands-on with the children, and the fact that I had no car and I lived in Chicago, and they would drive without complaining every single day to pick them up and take them to school for me, and then drop them back off to me. So I never, ever, ever tripped out on my ex, Lewis, their father, to do more because, as I said before, people can only do what they can do. And Lewis has circumstances and situational circumstances that have not allowed him to get a job that pays him much more than minimum wage. So if he can support my children when they're there with him, and his parents, whether they help or not, it's none of my business. But if they can support them while they're over there, I have no right to complain about it or take him to court or do anything like that because I'm supporting them when they're with me. Why would I ask him to continue supporting them, when he can barely do it? If he's living in abundance, it's a different story. If you see your wife struggling or the mother of your child struggling and you're living in abundance, then you absolutely, need to pay more money. But that wasn't the case for me. So I'm working full time. I have these children who I love so much. I'm full time in school, and I realized that I cannot get a nursing degree unless I'm able to complete clinicals. So I transferred my major to new business development and healthcare administration, law and ethics. I graduated a course called First Institute, which was solely focused on billing, coding, and morals and ethics. It was a 9-month program dedicated to 3 individual trimesters, 3 months with coding, 3 months with billing, 3 months with medical law and ethics. On top of that, you add in the 4 years of community college and then university, all with healthcare administrative majors. That puts me in a pretty good spot to be able to get shit done at Northwestern or for any, medical conglomerate. At Northwestern, I was hired 1 week prior to the merger of Medicare, or maybe not merger, but to Medicare or the government becoming contractually involved in monitoring electronic medical records. What do I mean by that? Prior to the day that I started, there were very few doctors who had made the switch over to EMR, electronic medical record. Most people in their offices were running standard paper charts, which you can get chart notes anywhere. They're very basic. They ask patient vitals are at the top, patient demographics are above that, and then the problem list. And it's like, you triage the patient. Head, ear, eyes, nose, throat, review of systems is what that's called. Chief complaint, progress, I think it's progress, surgical history, past medical history, and they're all abbreviated usually, HX for history. What else? What else would there be? Medications, problem list, review of systems, vitals, whatever. So all of the same thing that was on the paper, it was being now monitored by the government and needed to go into a computer system. There were numerous computer systems on the market.
Why are you just boring
and doctors
people to
had
death?
a little bit of freedom in
Shut
choosing
up.
which one they wanted to go